again. You'll come, you'll come. Chains be broken. Chains be broken, lies be healed, eyes be open, Christ is revealed. Chains be broken, lies be healed, eyes be open, Christ is revealed. You'll come, let your glory fall as you respond to us. Spirit rain, flood into our thirsty hearts again. You'll come, you'll come. You'll come, let your glory fall as you respond to us. Spirit rain, flood into our thirsty hearts again. You'll come, you'll come. You may be seated. You ever practice a song in a key? Well, you may not have, but you ever practice a song in a key, and you forget what key it's in, and you can't sing it right for the rest of the song? Sorry. Go ahead, buddy.
So I think next week I'm going to shave my hair off and come in.
Do it. Hashtag bald squad.
My family anatomy will say that I will probably not have hair for too much longer, so I'm trying to have as much as I can for as long as possible.
Enjoy it while you got it, buddy.
So I think I know most of you in this room. If you don't know, my name is Corbin Hess. And so my only formal practice with delivering a message from the Bible is to middle school students. And so if I look at this room, the average, the median age of this room is much, much, much older than a middle school student. So all of that to say, buckle up and hang on, because it's going to be a great ride. So ever since I started my career, and I say that like I've had a career for a long time. I've only been doing this for about a year and a half. I have found myself becoming more and more domesticated, which I guess is a good thing, right? But I make my own money now, so I don't really expect my parents to buy me gifts like they used to. But this year, when my parents were asking me, well, Corbin, what do you want for Christmas? I thought it was almost comical. And I was like, well, I'm low on cleaning supply, I need Q-tips. You know, why don't I just give you my grocery list? Because that's really, really the thing that I want. And so I think that the thing that I love the most about Christmas is how honest kids are. Well, really any time of the year. I think I love the honesty of kids because they are raw and honest and they have the guts to say things that adults don't, right? So if you ask them what they want for Christmas, or if you ask, a good church-going Christian adult, they're going to say, well, all I want for Christmas is Jesus and peace on earth and to feed the thousands. And a kid's like, ooh, no, I want an Xbox. Right? And so I think when the Bible tells us to be like children, it tells us to examine our hearts. And so I think for a lot of us, we, or as Christians, and this might sound harsh, but I think that we struggle with having flowery rhetoric and kind of over-spiritualizing a lot of things. So for a person looking in at the church, they're like, well, that's not what I want, right? Like if I'm completely honest with myself, I don't want peace on earth. I don't want this. I just want a couple hours of peace. I want to rest from this past year of work and sorrow and broken relationships and failures, right? And so I just love kids' honesty because I think that if we're honest, we kind of fall in that same boat. And so hear me say, the more that you spend time with Jesus, the more you spend time with the Lord, your desires become his. And I think that the Sunday school answer is obviously all we need is God. And all we need is Jesus and to have faith. Right? But if we examine our hearts, the things that we want, and even the things that we believe are going to provide us the things that God has promised us, is not Jesus, and it's not faith. It is... So here, just follow this narrative, because if this narrative hasn't popped into your mind, you're a liar. If I could only have blank, then I would be happy. Then I would be able to do the things that God commanded me to do. If I could only get this job or this promotion or make this amount of money, then I would be able to provide for my family a little bit more. Then I would be able to feel like a man. Then I would be able to fill in the blank. Then I would be able to go out and do things that God has commanded me to do. Or if my kids only respected me and obeyed me, then maybe we could start bringing some relationships back together in this family. Or if I could only get my aunt or uncle that doesn't show up to Christmas to come, maybe they could start healing a little bit. Right? And so I think that narrative plays in our mind all the time. And these are not inherently bad things. These are great things that God has given to us, these desires that God has given to us, and they're good things. But I think the problem for a lot of us is that we place those things, those good inherent things, as ultimate, as the thing that is going to satisfy our heart, the thing that's going to provide what only God can. So we take those good things, and place them in the spot in our heart that only God can fill, right? And so I'll be a little vulnerable and share kind of what that narrative plays in my mind, and I'm probably going to regret this. But so in my mind, the narrative that plays is, well, if I could meet a girl and marry her, then I would be able to do the things, then I would be able to become the man that I want to be. Then I'll be able to go out and do the things that God has commanded me. Then I will be content with where I'm at. And so hear me say this. Please do not come up to me after the sermon and tell me that you have somebody to set me up with. I'm sure she's great, but I share that to add some reality to what goes on in our hearts. Because what that then does is, I think that if I can just marry a girl, then that will solve all my problems. But the reality is, and I know this, and all of us know this, that will not solve our problems. That will not bring us to a place of contentment. But it does direct our actions. So it starts directing the way that we speak, the way that how I spend my Friday and Saturday nights, how I look after jobs, and all this other stuff, taking my eyes off what's really going to bring me the things that I want. So I think that we think that these things have promises but once we actually get them, 2 years down the line, you're wanting something bigger and better and something different. Because the thing that you thought that you wanted, once you got it, did not deliver on the promise that you thought it would, right? And so I want you to kind of keep that in your mind, and maybe just take a second to think about what narrative is playing in your mind today, or this past year, or this past month. What's the thing you think is going to make you finally content with where you're at? Because I think that even a group of people that regularly go to church, that regularly read their Bible, that regularly pray, a lot of those people are not really content with where they're at. So just examine your heart. I just challenge you to do that. So I'm going to pray real fast, and then I'm going to get into the story. Dear God, thank you so much for the people that you brought to this room. Lord, we pray that future weeks, there are people that come off the streets. There are people that get invited into something bigger, that show up here to maybe hear a message that they haven't heard before, to hear that they are loved if they haven't heard that before, to hear that they belong, and then They are created by the creator of the universe, the king of the universe. Lord, I know that in my heart, I need you just as much, probably even more than every single person in this room. So speak to all of us. Any words that I say that are not from you, Lord, I pray that you would help us forget. And any words that are from you, you help us to ponder for the rest of this week. So thank you so much. Be with us in this time. So we are in the season of Advent. And so Advent, the definition of that just means the coming of something notable. And so obviously we all know what is coming, right? The coming of Jesus Christ. But I think that in this time, it's important to look at what has God promised, what has he foreshadowed to the coming of Jesus. So I want to spend some time on a promise that God made to his people through a guy named Abraham. And so I know this isn't a typical Christmas story, and I promise I'm not going to be talking about circumcision, but I want to focus on the promise that God made with Abraham. So, so I'm just going to read this story from the Old Testament. And so just to preface this story, Abraham is called the father of our faith. And so I think growing up in church and going to Sunday school, we have a misconception that the men of the Bible, the people that God has chosen, are these heroes that God has chosen to do great things. But if you really examine and start to look at the stories in the Bible, I think that you'll find that that's untrue. That the men of the Bible are adulterers, are murderers, are liars, are prostitutes, fill in the blank. Those are the men and women of the Bible that God has chosen to bring his people through. If I could have a little bit of time, I would love to go through the genealogy of Jesus. Because if you look through that, there are some people that the modern church probably would not accept into the church, right? And that's the line of Jesus. And so this line starts with Abraham. And who is, again, called the father of our faith. And so I want you to kind of think about that as I go through this story, because it's probably going to be surprising the way that he responds to God. So this is from Genesis 15, verse 1 through 6. It says, "After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abraham in a vision. 'Do not be afraid, Abraham. I am your shield. Your reward shall be very great.' But Abraham said, 'O Lord God, what will you give me? For I continue childless. And the heir of my house is Eliezer of Damascus.' And Abraham said, 'You have given me no offspring, and so a slave born in my house is to be my heir.' But the word of the Lord came to him, 'This man shall not be your heir. No one but your very own issue shall be your heir.' He brought him outside and said, 'Look towards the heaven, count the stars. If you are able to count them, even if you are able to count them.' Then he said to him, 'So shall your descendants be.' And he believed the Lord, and the Lord reckoned it to him as righteousness." So this story, it reveals really one thing about Abraham's heart. God says, "Abraham, I'm going to give you something great." And Abraham responds not by, "Wow, that's awesome. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you." He says, "Well, what are you going to give me? Because the thing that I really want is a child. And you have withheld that from me for so many years." And so when I was doing prep for this, I read through kind of the whole story of Abraham. And if you read the Bible, a lot of times there are things that seem out of place, that seem unnecessary to put in there. And one of the things that I recognized was through all of the points of Abraham's life, the Bible makes it very clear to say what age he is. And I think that that's kind of an unnecessary thing, but it's really important when you look at the context of this story. If we look at before what I just read, it shows that Abraham's about 75 years old right now. And so if you think about the human anatomy, after about 75 years old, unless his wife is much, much younger than him, which isn't true, then genealogically, or you can't have a baby, right? After 75 years old, right? Just can't happen. So he says, what can you possibly give me? Because I can no longer have a child. And that's the thing that I really want. It reveals his heart. That's the thing that in his mind says, if I could only have an heir, a child, then I would be content with where I'm at, with where you have me, right? But it says, Abraham believed him and it was counted towards him as faith. And so I get jealous of men in the Bible because I'm like, if the Lord audibly spoke to me or showed up to me in a vision or a dream, of course I would listen, right? Of course I would do the things that he's telling me to do. So I get jealous because I'm like, these dum-dums literally had somebody tell them what to do, God, the God of this universe. But if the Old Testament is nothing else, it's a story of God making promises to